This week, we talk about the Ghost of Techmas Past as we talk about Microsoft's attempt to get xCloud on the App Store, and also, was PlayStation Now planning for the App Store as well? Well, without further ado, let's just go ahead, together, as a people, and check it out! And welcome to another Jolly Sunday. That doesn't start with an S. It doesn't matter. It's still sensational. It's jolly. It's whatever. I'm Mike, and welcome to another news video. That's right. We're here to discuss the current events going on in tech and gaming. And one of the places that tech and gaming sometimes overlap, but not in a good way, is Apple. I've mentioned this before. So this week, we're talking about two stories that have come out via that case with Epic. Epic sued them because of the whole pulling Fortnite from the App Store, and there was a lot of juicy details that came out because of that case. So something that leaked more recently was just how much Microsoft tried to go through to get xCloud on Apple's App Store. So if you're not familiar with the whole story, basically Apple doesn't allow any streaming apps on their App Store. That's why you don't have stuff like xCloud, you don't have Google Stadia, not that anybody's playing that anyway, or GeForce Now. None of those are on the App Store, and it's because simply Apple's policies doesn't allow it. They say if you have a game collection up there, you have to have an individual app, which doesn't work really for streaming apps. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But that's their policy, and you know what? You gotta go with it, or you gotta roll. Well, apparently, according to these emails that came out because of that case, Microsoft actually tried to go with it. They really tried to get xCloud on the App Store. And then no matter what they did, Apple was like, nah. So they actually discussed internally as well as with Apple, like why this would be a stupid idea. And if you have like common sense, you can clearly see why this would be a stupid idea. Like, think about it. Do you really want to sit there and have to download each individual game just to stream it? Like, make an app on your home screen, they click on it to stream this game. And then when the game goes away, then the app stream is going to be useless. And also, from what they explained, the way their backend set up, like their API and all that, if they did an update, then they would have to update these hundreds of apps because, you know, they have hundreds of games on xCloud. So if they wanted to do an update just for the platform, they would have to update all these apps at the same time. So they did go in depth and discuss this with Apple, and they tried to reach a compromise. Like, they did float the idea of doing this, and apparently this is the juiciest part of the story. I saved the juiciest part, you know, for a little bit longer. They actually offered Apple exclusive games on the App Store that could be purchased or rented. So we could have then had some Halo Infinite exclusively on the Apple App Store if they would have just compromised with them and let xCloud streaming up there. Now, of course, it doesn't matter as much because they have the web app now, and that did launch in rough shape. I did a video when it first launched, and it wasn't the greatest, but it's gotten a lot better now. So streaming did eventually make its way to the iPhone through the web app, but you have to go through the website, and then you have to create your own shortcut, which isn't that big of a deal. But if you think about like the average phone user in general, not just iPhone user, a lot of them aren't going to go out of their way to look for a specific app that's not in the App Store. They're probably going to search for it in the App Store. If it doesn't come up, then they're just going to be like, whatever. Or there's going to be like some kind of scammy app that looks similar, and then they're going to get tricked into downloading it and possibly lose some money. So yeah, it is kind of important still to be in the App Store, even though they were able to figure out a workaround. But to me, it's just crazy that like Microsoft was really trying to work with them and trying to make this happen. And apparently talks went cold after a while. Like, Apple just was like, whatever, either do it our way or the highway. Now, Apple's big defense about this whole thing was that they have to rate the games individually because they don't go off of the ESRB, like, you know, the game ratings that are already there. They have their own rating system, which is slightly different from the ESRB. So they need to be able to rate each game for it to be on their store. And if it's a collection, it has to be individual apps. And that's the whole thing. That's their sticking point as to why they're not doing it. Personally, I believe that they're not doing it because they didn't want anything to get in the way of them releasing their gaming service, which is not even a streaming service, but you know how finicky Apple is with stuff. maybe they're planning to do a streaming service eventually and they don't want competing services on the platform. So I could see them doing something like this just to prevent future competition with their little Apple Arcade thing, which is okay. Like, I have it because it's a part of my subscription, because I have the subscription that has everything, and it's okay, but it's not even the same thing as these other services. Like, at all. It's not even close. Like, I'm not going to be playing, like, Halo Infinite. I'm not going to be playing some Cyberpunk or something like that on Apple Arcade. At least not the version that I want to play, if it was up there at all. I think everything's calmed down right now on the whole streaming front. Like, it's not as big of a hot topic yet, but I think it's going to come back around, especially because it's getting better and it's becoming available on more platforms. I think once it's available on TVs, because that's the next step for Microsoft at least, they want to roll it out as like a smart TV app or even possibly release their own streaming stick. Once that happens, I think the conversation is going to open back up again and again and again until Apple eventually compromises on it. That's usually what happens with Apple. They just hold fast on like, oh, we're not going to do this thing, and then they cave on it. And I think personally the ratings are a weak excuse, because you got like Netflix and stuff on the App Store that have movies that you don't individually rate. And you can't use the excuse of like, oh, well, you know, it's fine because it's Netflix. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. If you can go up there and you can watch a potentially bad movie, like remember the whole Cuties controversy? You can watch it through the iPhone. What if someone's kid went on the iPhone and watched Cuties? And then they get mad at Apple for it. It's the same situation as if a kid played a game they're not supposed to play. It's not a good excuse either way. Like, you can't be like, oh, we have to rate each individual game, but then each movie doesn't have to be rated. That's stupid. It's stupid. I'm done ranting about it. We do have our xCloud on iPhone now, so I guess it's fine. But I can always dream about what could have been. What could have been. And speaking of what could have been, apparently PlayStation Now could have been coming to the iPhone. So another thing that leaked from this whole court case was apparently Apple got wind back in 2017 that Sony was planning like a mobile expansion of their PlayStation Now streaming service. So that could have been potentially on iPhone. Now apparently Apple was already in the early stages of Apple Arcade at that time, but they kind of saw it as subscription gaming services being the future of gaming, which is obviously why they're working on Apple Arcade. So yeah, I think it's interesting, especially because PlayStation Now never really took off like that. So it would have been weird for them to kind of do a mobile version of it. Because even in 2017, I don't remember anybody talking about PlayStation Now. It just never caught on. And even when the streaming thing became big, like Stadia launched and, you know, xCloud and all that stuff, PlayStation Now has still just kind of been in the background. So to think in 2017 that they were considering actually bringing PlayStation Now to mobile, like I said, it's a really interesting prospect. But I could see it coming to mobile now, not PlayStation Now, whatever their follow-up subscription service is going to be that's going to replace PlayStation Now, because talked about this last week, but they're rumored to be making their own subscription service, and PlayStation Now, or what used to be PlayStation Now, is going to be rolling in one of those tiers, because the rumor is PlayStation Now, at least the brand is going to go away. They're still going to have streaming, but it's going to get rolled into their subscription service, kind of like xCloud is for Game Pass. But I'm curious if back in 2017, if they did actually make an iPhone app, would Apple have allowed it, or would they still have blocked it since they were still working on their own subscription gaming service with the same excuse that they use for like the xCloud and Stadia stuff? So that's kind of another curiosity of mine. But yeah, it's interesting. PlayStation Now was just always like, seemed like a weird thing. It seemed like a weird value proposition. First of all, is to be able to play these old games but only streaming. I know they updated it eventually to allow certain games to be downloaded too, but I felt like it was too little too late. So once they do this rebranding and kind of do the subscription tiered service, either that or they'll just get rid of PlayStation Now, because at this point, like, Game Pass has already eclipsed them in subscribers and it hasn't been around nearly as long. They got to do something. But it's interesting to really think that they were considering doing mobile back then. They would have had a big leg up if they would have actually focused on this service and made it something that people wanted to buy, you know, or subscribe to, but they kind of didn't, and it kind of fell to the wayside. But that's what could have been. And that today completes this episode where we talk about the ghost of Tecma's past. Now, am I going to keep doing Christmas themed stuff for the rest of the month? I probably won't, but I might just wear the Santa hat anyway, because it's fun. And if you had fun watching this video, then make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and always do at least 2 things at the same time. Happy holidays.